Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to, I say another Breakfast Club. It's been, I don't think we've done one since Game Week 5 just because of the way the deadlines have fallen. But after what feels like about 3 months, we are back to having some football. And I am joined by Gianni to count down for about the next 30 or so minutes all the talking points, our team news, what transfers we made. I think there's going to be some shocks in this stream, just given the chat we've just had. But how are you doing this morning? How are you feeling with the football back?
Oh, I'm buzzing, mate. I'm so excited about a couple of big days of football ahead now. Like I like game weeks that start on the Saturday. I don't like the Friday night start. So this is perfect. We've waited 2 weeks and we've got an amazing schedule of fixtures over the next 2 days.
I do. I'm the same. I do like the Saturday start as well. Although I will say, like last night was a nightmare. I was up. I made my transfer at 20 to 1 this morning. Now usually I either make it, I don't know, early evening or maybe around 10 latest, or I wait till the Saturday. But I just knew there was a chance that Salah was going to drop. And I knew I was probably going to take him out, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I stayed up till 20. I was watching Black Box as well. And I regret it now. I've been out for the dog for an hour already this morning. So yeah, that was massive regret. But that's what the international break does to you, and that's what a Salah potential a missing game does to you as well. So we'll talk about that. We should just talk about it now, right? Salah's the big talking point. I'm sure there's still
Yeah.
people thinking about whether or not to get rid of him or not. So I'm going to bring your team up. We're going to talk about your dodgy -8 in a minute. You've got Salah, right? But you're not thinking about getting rid of him, right? And
No,
I'm different. I've got rid of him, so I'll talk about why in a sec. So how come? Why are you keeping him?
just because I don't want to. I don't have the squad to cope necessarily. Right, I could if I bring him out. I've then got to bring him back in 2 or 3 weeks' time. In game week 12, he's playing Fulham. He'll definitely be in then, if not before. I don't have a good enough squad where I can use those I need to use those valuable transfers elsewhere, right? I need to improve my squad. So I've decided to keep him in, and I didn't really need the money because I've already downgraded Kane this week. So I've got funds in the bank. My plan moving forward is to go double City midfield with KDB Sterling, and Salah is still a part of that. So I'm not willing to sell him, use his funds up, and then price myself out of a move for him in 3 weeks' time. And look, there's a chance he plays next week, and you know, Klopp's comments yesterday were pretty good. So yeah, we don't know anything at the moment in terms of when he's going to play, but I'm crossing my fingers, and if he does play next week, that's a nice little differential already on a lot of the community, right?
I will say for next week, I've seen people starting to say things like, "Well, I've got De Bruyne, he is captain," or "I'll just captain this player." I think Salah's, unless you've got Jamie Vardy next week, I think Salah is the best captain if he's fit. So I've got rid of him, and I'm a little bit worried about my captaincy options next week. But I'll talk about that in a sec. Obviously, yours is a bit team dependent. Do you see any scenarios where you may have got rid of him this week?
No, not
So I
really.
think about like people that so not necessarily your team, but like people that have got like two free transfers, for example. In that case, or do you still think it's worth just holding on to him?
No, do you know, I can see if people didn't have a Man City asset, so I already had Sterling, so I wasn't worried about that. But going into the next wave of fixtures and all those amazing fixtures Man City have, obviously after Tottenham this weekend, I'd consider selling Salah if it meant bringing a KDB in or bringing a Sterling in, a little bit like what you've done, Andy. I think having a Man City asset from next week onwards is absolutely a must-have.
Spoiler alert! There, giving away my transfer. I'll talk about that in a minute. So you've already done a -4. So you've taken
Yeah.
Kane to Bamford. I should know this because I did the freaking video with you. I can't
Mm.
remember the other move. What was the other move? Oh, it was Grealish in for Trossard, wasn't it?
Trossard.
Yeah.
Trossard, who Potter says is unlikely to be ready for this game week. So that injury came out of nowhere. I've just had flag after flag. And look, I should have bought Grealish instead of Trossard 6 weeks ago, and it was something I actually was very close to doing. And I went with Trossard. I tried to be clever, the wrong move. But at least I've been able to rectify it now. And in a way, I've been lucky because Grealish could have had way more points than he has. So yeah, Grealish comes in, Bamford comes in. I've got 3.3 million in the bank to go from done to a 4.9 million defender and then upgrade Son to Kane next week. That was going to be done to a 5
Son to
million defender.
KDB. Son to
Sorry,
KDB.
Son to KDB, yeah. So that was meant to be done to a 5 million defender and then Son to KDB. But KDB decided to jump in price last night. He's 11.6 million. So now I can't spend 5 million on a defender. I can spend 4.9. So I'm looking.
Come on, tell everyone who you're looking. Right, I'll tell you what. Right, we won't reveal it just yet. I want everyone in the chat to tell us who is Gianni's £4.9 million defender, and I bet nobody gets it. Right, so we'll come back onto that in a sec.
He's 4.5 million, just so you know.
Okay,
if you're looking at it. And yeah, I won't give you any. I mean, I've just looked at his ownership, and it is amazing.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a second because I don't think anyone is going to guess it. We'll give him a couple of minutes because I think actually this week there's so many conversations around certain players that our teams kind of bring up all the talking points. So you've got rid of Kane this week, right? Are you worried about that? Given his ownership, given his stats. You worried?
I'd actually be more worried about selling Son this week. And I've seen so many happy to sell Son and not Kane. But for me, Son's got higher ownership. And I do think this next wave of fixtures for Spurs, despite Kane's form being better than Son's, I think it will play into Son's hands, but more counter-attacking football. Son is the number 9, Kane is the number 10, Son in behind. I think if City score, Son is just as likely as Kane, even without the penalty threat in these fixtures.
Okay, we'll come back. We'll come back to Spurs in a sec because people are putting it in the chat. I got to be honest, I can't believe how many people have got it. Maybe I'm the one overlooking him, but yes, plenty of people have got Klein. Will Beale was first. Nathaniel Klein is going to be your other transfer. A lot of people saying Soufal. I also said that, but obviously you've already got. Before we came on, I mentioned getting a West Ham defender, but you've already got Masuaku and you've already got Martinez as well, which is why you don't want the second Villa defender. So Klein, talk us through it.
Yeah, I actually did tweet it. So those that got it may follow me on Twitter.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I tweeted it about half an hour ago, I think. But 0.2% ownership. I think he's nailed it right back. Joel Ward is now fit, so there is a glimmer of hope for the Joel Ward owners that he comes back into the team. But I'll be very surprised. Klein's been playing well. He offers way more in terms of attacking threat. I think Van Aanholt and Klein will be the fullbacks. Mitchell and Ward will be benched. And yeah, Crystal Palace. Uncle Roy has always had that team on lockdown, and they've only kept one clean sheet this season somehow. But they're due a few, and they've got some really nice fixtures coming up. So I'm willing to go there. I've always fancied Roy Hodgson defenders. They've just had loads of problems at centre back this season. Certain managers, Roy Hodgson, Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis, Sean Dyche, I like owning their defenders. And I've not had a Roy defender other than Mitchell, who's now probably going to be benched. So I like Klein.
Fair enough. But so you're not going to do Mitchell to Klein either. So Klein, are you going to bench him? I take you're going to play Salah just in case, right?
Yeah, you may as well.
Because I mean, there is. I think I can't remember exactly when the first test was, but I think 10 days is Saturday or Sunday. So we should. He is flagged. He is red flagged not to be back till next week. But still, Klopp didn't actually rule him out yesterday. Which, if he starts, would be kind of funny. I really think it's super unlikely because he's kind of. Klopp didn't really touch on the fact that he probably shouldn't have been at the wedding. He did say they discussed it behind the scenes, and so I think to then rush him back would be like a proper mick take. Unless it's within if it's within the rules, then so be it. So there is a chance he comes back. All right, so you've got rid of Kane. I'll bring up my team as well, and I'll talk about Kane, all the stuff I just asked you, basically. So I've got rid of Salah, and I've got De Bruyne in, and I don't have Fernandes. We need to talk about Fernandes, because neither of us have him. Which I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit worried about that. One of the reasons I haven't gone for him is because I've already got Rashford in, and I feel like he probably starts. He is flagged, and Solskjaer's comments yesterday weren't too helpful, really, just saying that as long as there's no reaction, but we know what Solskjaer's like. He doesn't give too much away, so I'm hoping that Rashford's going to be fine. I also don't think we can really afford to not play him if he is fit, so I think he's going to play. He was always my captain this week anyway, even before the Salah news, because I thought Salah was a decent captain this week. I just thought it was so close, I'd go a little bit different. So I've gone for Rashford, and I don't have Fernandes. I mean, I could go in loads of details about why that is, but essentially, I'm playing the long game here, the slightly longer game, and in terms of like 2 or 3 weeks, and that De Bruyne was always in the plans to come in the next few weeks anyway. And if I got Fernandes, so I did toy with doing Fernandes in and De Bruyne in for Son, but I had to fund that, so I would have probably had to get rid of Kane as well for like a Watkins or a Vardy. But I just feel like I've got 2 free transfers as well, which is worth noting. So it's a little bit different for me. So I've brought De Bruyne in, I still have a free transfer. So if I roll it, like I've got so many options for next week. I could still do Kane and Son. I could bring forward my Sterling De Bruyne double up, so I could do that next week. So for Burnley, Fulham, West Brom at home in the next 4, I could have De Bruyne and Son, De Bruyne and Sterling for free. And fund that through Kane to a cheap striker. And next week, it might not even be Watkins that I want. It might be Antonio. I could just go for Bamford. There's other options there. Or I could just do Kane to Vardy and captain Vardy. There's just so many options left open now. We're doing this move and not getting Fernandes. Like, I'm not sat here thinking Fernandes is a bad option. Like, I do think he is the best captaincy option this week. And so I am worried about that. But I've just got the backup with Rashford and De Bruyne. Like I said, it just brings my transfers forward. And I know everyone's like, a few people are going to be looking at more pay, saying what are you doing with him still. But I don't think it's cut and dry that Villa absolutely smashed Brighton. I think it could be close, it could be open. I think it could go either way. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think about? What do you think? You've already kind of mentioned that you kind of like bringing in De Bruyne early, right? Because of those fixtures. So yeah, that's an all right move. Salah to De Bruyne.
That's a great move for you, knowing you didn't have a City player. And also, you've got that valuable transfer in the bank. So not many went into this week with 2 free transfers. You did. So, and when you look at your squad, unlike when you look at my squad, you've not got loads of fires to put out in terms of your enablers. So you've probably got those transfers to go, I can use a transfer to get rid of Salah and bring him back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks if I need to. I just can't afford those transfers because my squad's poor and I need to upgrade certain people. So yeah, I think it's a good move, mate. I mean, I also look at Morpie and think, oh, hang on a minute, should you be jumping onto a Watkins or an Antonio or a Bamford now? But you're right, that Brighton Villa game, you never know with Brighton. I mean, they beat Newcastle 3-0 earlier this season at St James's Park. I think they can turn up and they can put in devastating displays. So, and Villa have shown us when they concede, they often concede 3 or 4. So, yeah,
I basically
was a nice little wild card
for that particular match, right? And like it's the same with Grealish captain. I wouldn't be surprised if either team wins.
Yeah,
like it wouldn't be a shock to me. The only thing is, like you said about Trossard, that would worry me if he's missing, and that is a big loss. And then suddenly it's advantage Villa. And don't get me wrong, Villa have been playing really well so far this season. I think they're second for shots in the box over the last 4 game weeks, etc. Although Brighton are least amount of shots conceded, so we'll see how that goes. But the thing that I'm worried about with Salah is captaincy. So every week this season so far, I've had the player that I've thought is the best captain option. So even when people were captain De Bruyne, I was captain in Salah and it worked out. This week I don't have who I think is the best captaincy, which is Fernandes. I do think Rashford's... I do think, and I've said this all season, if there happen to be no penalties in that game, I think it's close. Right? If there's penalties, Fernandes will smash Rashford by a mile. But if there's no penalties, I think it'd be close to who wins out. And I think if you played that game 10 times, I think it'd be quite even about who scores the most points if they both start. Next week, though, I think, again, it's Vardy and Salah, I think, are the best. And I'm possibly not going to own either. And De Bruyne against Burnley is okay, but I'm not that happy about it. So that's my only worry, that for this week and next week, I maybe don't have the 2 captains. After that, I figure out I've got a way to get Salah back. Basically, if I do Kane to a cheap forward and Son to Sterling, that gives me enough money to do Rashford to Salah whenever I want. So game week 12 would obviously be the way for that, and I'm happy to keep Rashford for the next couple. So I'm pretty happy with the team. I must admit, sometimes you make a transfer and then you immediately regret it, which I didn't, and then I also woke up and didn't regret it either. So
win.
Yeah, it all relies on Rashford starting. Like if Rashford doesn't start tonight, then I'll obviously watch that game because I still want United to win, but it'll be a killer from an FPL point of view. Like, how are you feeling? Like, a lot of people are making all this talk about home and away form with Man United, and Fernandes' stats are so much better away from home. But I mean, I can't get past the fact it's West Brom. Like, where's the worry? Like, do you think Man United are going to struggle?
It's a tiny data point, that, and also United beat Leipzig at home.
Exactly, 5-0. We smashed them 5-0.
Yeah, I don't buy that. The pool of data is just not big enough. But I mean, look, I'm going into this game week without a United player. Like, I also think Bruno is the best shout if you own him, and Rashford is probably the second best shout. And you're looking at captaincy this game week. I own neither. But I'm very happy owning neither because it is just this week I'm worried about. The West Brom fix just scares the life out of me. But moving forward, I'd rather have City or Chelsea players than United players for the next little run of fixtures. But look, I mean, if West Brom managed to keep it tight for the first half and United don't score an early goal, it could be the same as Spurs. 86 minutes in, Kane pops up with a winner, 1-0. That wouldn't surprise me. It's can West Brom shut United out for long enough to frustrate them? If United get an early goal or score in that first half an hour, those that haven't captained a United player, that will be a terrifying watch. Because if United go 1-0 up or 2-0 up, they just run riot. And we've seen that. Look at the Newcastle game. That was tight till the 85th minute and they won, 3 or 4-1?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And in a way, Everton was similar. That was cagey and then a couple of late goals. So, look, United do that better than anyone. But I do think West Brom can keep it tight. I like Slavan Bilic and the way he sets his teams up. We saw them frustrate Spurs. It'll be a very low block. It will be very tough for Rashford because Rashford likes playing against the high line and spacing behind to run in. And Slaven Bilic will not allow them to do that. So, Bruno will have lots of possession. He'll probably be shooting on sight a lot because, he'll have everyone in front of him. But yeah, I'm just worried that United score early. But, I wouldn't be surprised if it's tight. And I don't know if I'll be watching 3 games of football today, possibly 4. The one I miss will be United West Brom. I just don't think I can bring myself to watching that game. It'll be a tough watch as a non-Bruno owner.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to watch it. And with Rashford, it makes it a little bit easier, I guess, as long as he starts. But yeah, a lot of it was because of this one fixture. Like, what do you make of Bruno as a long-term hold? Because I think he's okay for the next 3, right? Southampton away, West Ham away. I know people will say the defences have been okay, fair enough, but I still think Man United have got enough to get something in both those games, and Fernandes will likely be the heart of anything we get. What do you think of him as a long-term hold? Because for me, it's not that he's a bad option. He's 10.7 or 10.6 million, maybe 10.7 now, I think, actually. And so he's not that far off of Sterling or De Bruyne. So do you think there's any case to have him instead of one of the Man City players, especially given how City have played so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging, since he's been in the league, 20-odd games. He's 8 points per game. Like, the stats do not lie. They are scary. He's on course for a 300-point season if those numbers continue. We've never had that before, right? So the stats don't
we've had
lie.
Salah. Salah's done it.
Oh, yeah, Salah has done it
303, yeah.
Was that his first season?
It was, yeah. 9.5 million. Absolutely ridiculous.
30-odd goals, yeah. Crazy numbers. But look, Bruno, I mean, I think he'll score well in the next wave of games, but I still prefer Sterling and I still prefer De Bruyne. The reason Bruno's had so much love is there was no obvious captaincy this game week. So people are bringing him in, and rightly so, to give him the armband because there isn't that obvious competitor there. But I can't help but think I need consistency from United to spend that sort of money on someone. And in the Premier League, we've not seen that consistency. Now, Bruno's been getting the points, yes, but if you've been watching the games, as I know you have, Andy, and I've watched every one of United's games, a lot of those points have come from smash and grab victories late on in games. Against Newcastle, he got the late goal. Against Everton, the late goal or assist. Like, they're games that are really cagey. And then in that last 5-10 minutes, all of Bruno's points come. They could easily not have happened. But they did, and you've got to appreciate that. But I can't help but think a lot of Bruno's points this season, not from Project Restart, but this season, I think a lot of points, and I don't like using the term in FPL, I think they've been lucky points, right? And with that said, I think it's a lot of money for a player in an inconsistent team. This week, I think he'll do well for you. It will get a return. But moving forward, I still prefer Sterling and De Bruyne.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I hate it's almost impossible just to sit here and say that he's been lucky because the points just keep ticking in. But I feel like I don't know if I know what you mean. I don't know if lucky's the word, but again, I know what you mean. Like, they've come late, but I guess same could happen at West Brom if they start chasing the game. We were up, the same thing could happen, right? That's what happened against Everton. We were 2-1 up. Everton started chasing the game, and the third goal came on the break with Fernandes. He just easy passed to Cavani, right? It was Cavani just put it away. So same thing could happen. I think it's hard to back against him. I'll finish on this with Fernandes. The reason that I got De Bruyne is, well, one of the reasons, there's a lot, but one was, if I looked at Fernandes from now over the next 4 weeks or 3 weeks, then he's really good because of this game week. But if you look from kind of game week 10 onwards, most models, etc., and even myself just looking at the fixtures, I would put De Bruyne ahead of him, and that is why I've done it. So, look, definitely not a bad option, and I am worried about not owning him this week, but it is what it is. It's 1 week. If I get through this week, I'll be okay.
Final point on De Bruyne I want to ask you is Project Restart, he played 90 every week. He was the main man watching the games. Everything was going through him. This season, of course, he's been good and he's been involved a lot, but he's been subbed at 45 minutes this season. We never saw that before, purely tactical. He's been subbed at 70 minutes. Again, we weren't seeing that. Because Van der Beek has come in, there is another person sort of threatening that number 10. We've seen Van der Beek come on and Bruno push deeper in one game. Should we be worried about Bruno perhaps not being as, I don't know, as talismanic as he was in Project Restart, for example, knowing that he's tried different formations? Bruno is still 100% the main man for you?
Yeah. No, there's no worries. I see people in the chat saying, like, unlucky, haha, obvious that we don't own Fernandes. Like, we're both sat here saying Fernandes is a great option. Like, neither of us think that Fernandes is a bad option at all. There's just potentially other players to own. I think that's starting to overthink it. He is the main man. Everything goes through him. I do think his open goal threat, like in terms of stats, it doesn't look that good, but they keep scoring. Like he just keeps scoring. Like, so I don't know. I don't even know how to measure him anymore. It's a bit like I said to you, I think the other day. It's a bit like the Yaya Toure Ramsey situation from years back, where you just thought, how do they keep scoring? And they just do. So I wouldn't back against him, and I do think he's still the main man. He might drop deeper at times, but that is going to be very rare, I think. So especially now we're playing the Fred and McTominay kind of pivot quite a lot. So yeah, I wouldn't be worried about him at all. Good option. And me and Gianni will just be panicking at 8 o'clock tonight, basically. We'll come on to Chelsea in just a sec. I want to do really quickly on Foden. I know not a lot of people have been talking about him in the chat, but I've seen people kind of, they're obviously like, they feel like they're stuck with him. And they've got really good fixtures coming up, but he's not been getting the minutes. If you owned him, would you hold him?
Yeah, for these fixtures, if you are a Foden owner, when you buy him, you need to realise that there will be rotation there. You have to buy him for the long haul. Buying Foden for one or two off game weeks, it's high risk. If you buy him, you've got to see it out. So you definitely hold him for these fixtures.
I think I would start to think about getting rid. Do you know, only because, right, if I think now they've got a number 9 back, right? Jesus is back. Aguero looks like, apparently Aguero's travelled for the Spurs game.
He has.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got a number 9 back, right? So Sterling ain't playing false 9 anytime soon. They're going to play Aguero and Jesus. Sterling is pretty much nailed on that left side, right? You wouldn't say as nailed as a Bruno Fernandes, etc. He probably will get rested slightly more, but it's minimal. He's basically nailed on that left. And Foden is still mostly playing in wider positions, right? I don't think he's played central that often for City. So
Not
he's
this season.
Yeah, so he's up against Mahrez, and Torres has been really good as well. Bernardo Silva can even play there. So he's got so much rotation there. I think unless the 5 subs thing comes back in, I think Foden's going to be massively frustrating. I think when there was no Jesus or Aguero, it meant someone like Sterling or Torres would have to play up front, in which case there was an extra slot for him. But now there isn't, and I just think there's so many good options right now. I personally, it's hard to get rid of him because of the fixtures, but I would be looking to get rid, I think. So there you go. You have a different opinion. Gianni thinks you should keep. I think you should start thinking about getting rid. I just think there's too much competition now at City for him. He's great. Obviously, he plays so good for England. I'd love to see him week in, week out. But at City, it's just not going to happen. Right? And we know
definitely wouldn't buy him. He's definitely not one you bring in, is he? Yeah.
Definitely not. Let's quickly touch on Chelsea, and then we'll do the goals imminent before we shoot off. So Chelsea kind of a little bit overlooked. Like Ziyech had a lot of hype around him, and I still think he would have this week if Salah hadn't gone and got himself, with the positive test and gone to the wedding, etc. Chelsea scored the most goals this season. Do you think they're being overlooked? And how good of a captain do you think Werner is this week compared to the other options? Because you're captaining this week, right?
Yeah. So for the record, I'd definitely be captaining a United player if I had one. But outside of that, I think the best fixture there is Chelsea-Newcastle. And Chelsea, as you say, Andy, they've scored more goals than anyone. But Newcastle have conceded the most shots of everyone in the Premier League. So shots conceded, Newcastle are higher than anyone. So that's a nice recipe. They've struggled at home, Newcastle. So I think Ziyech is a really good captain shout this week. I mean, I don't own Ziyech, I own Werner, so I'm going with Werner. But Ziyech's form has been amazing. He's got 2 goals, 3 assists for Morocco in the international friendlies, the 2 fixtures. He's been on fire for Chelsea. Werner, we know, is on penalties. So given the armband to one of those guys, I think he's a really, really good option. again, it's the early kickoff, and we don't like giving captaincy to the early kickoff. But what we know about those two guys is they're almost guaranteed to start as well with the injuries Chelsea have got. You know, if Pulisic is fit, you worry Werner will eventually get his rest, and that's not going to be the case this week. Hudson-Odoi has looked really good for the under-21s, and there is talk amongst Chelsea fans that Hudson-Odoi could start on the left, and that could mean Werner playing as the 9. But I think he'll go Werner left, Tammy Abraham as the 9, who's been all right in recent weeks for him. But Ziyech in that team just adds so much quality. And we're talking about Chelsea assets here in Werner and Ziyech that are both priced of under 10 million. Ziyech considerably under 10 million, right? They're producing like premiums, or I think will start producing like premiums in a team that are scoring more goals than anyone. I think they're really good value, because when we're talking about United assets and City assets, well, they're way more expensive and they're not scoring as many goals. So I don't think Chelsea are getting enough love. I see a lot of teams from really, really good managers on Twitter, and not many have got Chelsea attackers. Yeah, everyone's got Chilwell, sure, but I think the Chelsea attack deserves a little bit more respect, actually. I mean, look, biased Chelsea fan here, right?
I kind of agree to a certain extent, because they are doing really well, and I expect them to carry that on for the whole season. They're going to be right up there. Look, I still think it's a tough ask to get near City and Liverpool, although obviously this season might be the easiest time given how many injuries Liverpool have got. But yeah, that Chelsea team is really good, and I think you can look at the next kind of 1, 2, 3, 6 fixtures, and on paper they look kind of difficult, but I could see goals against Newcastle, Leeds, Everton and West Ham. So 4 of them are okay, and the prices are quite good. But I also think the prices is what's stopping them. Like, it's a Werner versus a cheap striker and getting Sterling, for example, or it's Werner versus Vardy, and Vardy's got Fulham at home next week. So it is difficult. What I will say is I do think Werner potentially is, maybe outside of Man United players, the best captain this week. I think there's so many options. Like, it is so close, it's unreal. Like, this is probably the closest it's been all season. So I think you can make a case for Calvert-Lewin, James Rodriguez as well. Like, for me, Grealish is actually quite low down the list in terms of players I'd want to captain. But I think, yeah, if you haven't got Man United players and you've got Werner, I think it's a good shout. My tip would always be, pick your captain before you check what time they're playing, because the early kickoff, I remember this happens so many times. People mention that, and then like Kane goes and scores a hat trick or something, or gets a brace, and they're like, well, maybe it's not a thing. So I know why people do it, because if you captain blanks in the first game, especially the way the games are done now, where they're so drip fed to us, like it's a killer to have to watch all those games. But yeah, if you take the timing of the game out of it, which you absolutely should, I think Werner's a great captain this week. And the penalties obviously just adds to it. We know that's a thing now. So yeah, I really like him. Let's finish on the goals imminent table. Famous. It's famous. Goals imminent table. So, I mean, Mitrovic is on here. I don't think Mitrovic will ever get off, because this is all based on like amount of chances, expected goals and stuff, and he just has so many shots. It's unreal.
He might be back on pens as well, Andy, with Lookman's miss.
Yeah, I don't. Apparently, he was injured. Apparently, now whether or not he was just saying that because he didn't feel like taking it, but apparently he had. I think he was feeling a hamstring strain or something. Was apparently the thing, which is why Lookman took it. So, okay. I mean,
he did miss one a few weeks before.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a bit weird though. He's been their main penalty taker for so long. Like, they're never giving them to Lookman, are they? Like, come on, you can't Panenka like that and miss it. Like, the thing with the Panenka, it looks great when you pull it off. But anyway, Mitrovic is still on there. I say there's still some people holding on to him. They've ridden out the price drops. But, I mean, long term, there's just too many good cheap strikers to hold him for very long, I think. Mahrez is on there, but the problem with him is just no guarantee he's going to start. Lookman's on there. I think half of that is probably because taking that penalty would have given him like 0.76 expected goals, and so he's got on the table because of that, and he's missed it. I don't necessarily think he's a great option, but I'll tell you the 3 players are on here that are interesting. Grealish, so maybe seen as more of an assistant, but he's already scored 4 goals this year, so he's on there. Interesting. Brighton at home, a lot of people looking to captain him. Rashford is on there. So I didn't see this until after I'd already made all my decisions, so I was glad to see Rashford on there. So hopefully he can get something as well. And Barkley. Like, do you think Barkley's being maybe a little bit overlooked now? Because there's obviously so much love for Watkins and Grealish. Is there still a place for Barkley in people's teams?
If you want double Villa attack, I actually think Barkley is very similar in terms of Watkins, in terms of who's second best to Grealish. But the one thing is for sure, if you think you can cover not owning Grealish by going Barkley or Watkins, then no. But Grealish is absolutely worth the extra investment. I didn't want to buy Grealish this week. my plan was I want Villa cover, and I was looking at all my options. I looked at Watkins, looked at Barkley, and then I realised I just cannot cover Grealish's points with those guys. So for me, Grealish is head and shoulders above, and then actually Watkins and Barkley are pretty level. When Trezeguet plays on the right, which is their preferred formation at the moment, Barkley plays as a second striker. When Bertrand Traore plays on the right, more attacking, Barkley drops to an attacking number 8. So if they go with Trezeguet, which I think they're going to continue with on the right, workman like getting up and down, Barkley's playing as a second striker. His heat map, his touch map, is literally on top of Watkins's. So I think Barkley's a good option if you want a double Villa.
Yeah, I think they're close. And if you're maybe already in like a 3-5-2 or something, you could just go Barkley. I think for me, for Watkins, the penalties would just swing it into his favour when they're nearly the same price. But yeah, I think if you're already in 3-5-2, Barkley, yeah, like you said, sometimes he's playing right up there. And yeah, Grealish is just, yeah, he's so far ahead. He's just involved in everything. Like you just can't look past him and try and go somewhere else. Really quickly, so I know I said we would stop on that, but something we've overlooked and is probably being overlooked is Sadio Mane, right? So he is like a pretty easy straight swap. And one of the reasons to go for Mane as well is if Salah was back, for example, which would strengthen Liverpool as a whole, you've already got that other Liverpool midfielder to maybe cover some games before you can look to get Salah back. So just in case you had other stuff to do, you'd already have Mane for Fulham, Mane for Brighton, etc. So do you think he's being overlooked, or would the amount of injuries at this point put you off Liverpool? Not maybe entirely, but to spend that much when you could go for like Fernandes or De Bruyne or Sterling instead.
I do think he is being overlooked, and I actually think Jota as well comes into that sort of category. I think Jota and Mane are both very good options if you're selling Salah, and only if you're selling Salah. But it helps, you know, the rush to bring Salah back perhaps isn't quite there if you've got the cover with those guys. And look, Liverpool, yes, they've got problems at the back, but they've still got the likes of Thiago Silva returning. They've still got a good squad. And yes, it might mean the likes of Keita play. Well, Keita's a £70 million midfielder. Not been amazing, but offers so much potential. So I think Liverpool have sort of, I don't know, I think they've got enough to still give Leicester a very good game. A lot of people are saying Leicester are favourites. I find that hard to believe still. And look, Liverpool will always be a team that creates a lot of opportunities. So their attackers you have to respect.
Yeah, Fabinho should be available as well. So I don't like they are kind of decimated, but it's not like they've got a bad squad of players to replace with. Henderson will be a bit of a miss for me, I think, because he's out now as well. So the reason I've kind of overlooked Mane is because I just feel like if I'm getting rid of Salah for a few weeks, I want to do something a little bit different than just go into the other Liverpool midfielder. But anyone that's just gone straight to him, and even anyone that's captain, right? I said that Fernandes, Rashford, Timo Werner are the top 3. Mane has to be in that equation as well. So really good option. We'll leave it there. So just a quick reminder, this is Gianni's team. He's going to bring in the great Nathaniel Klein as well, as everyone already knew earlier. And no Fernandes, keeping Salah. I've got rid of Salah for De Bruyne, and I'm captaining for Rashford. So we're just two idiots without Bruno Fernandes this week, basically. And that'll either look like genius or absolute stupidity by 10 o'clock tonight. So we'll see how it goes. Gianni, thanks very much for joining me this morning.
No, thank you for having me, guys. I'm on Scoutcast match day at 12:25 today. So watching that early kickoff, watching Chelsea versus Newcastle, you can see me celebrate as Werner scores his hat trick. So do tune in to the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel for that in a couple of hours' time.
Yeah, the stream's already actually up. So if you want to go and set a reminder, you can do that now. And obviously on the counterpoint is you might be watching Gianni in tears as he realises captain's blanked and he's got to watch Man United later. So yeah, go and set a reminder for that. That'd be a good watch. Yeah, Seb's on there, and maybe Rich as well. We're waiting to see if he's going to be flagged or not. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Good luck with any of your transfer decisions. Deadline is less than an hour now, so get them in, and we will see you soon.